It was a sluggish start to spring for the entire Corn Belt.
And this year's just been cold. I mean, this is the coldest I've seen it for a long time.
When farmers in the central and eastern leg had a chance to plant, they did, and fast.
We thought it's time to get rolling.
And that happened in a lot of the Midwest. We just didn't have much of a spring. It went right from winter to summer.
Parts of the western belt receiving multiple snowstorms across April into Minnesota and Wisconsin, continuous rain and planting delay after delay. Some meteorologists say the story of the have versus the have-nots will continue to a certain extent.
I think we have weather challenges this year, but I don't think we have weather problems.
Martin forecasting some of the planting challenges may stay in the western belt, especially Minnesota.
I'm particularly looking at Minnesota. That's the one that's really behind the 8 ball right now. And I'm looking at Minnesota and saying, hey, we're going to have some delayed plantings later on into June. I think Minnesota, for example, could have a very dry September. Normally that wouldn't matter. It'd just dry the crop down, we get it out sooner. This year, maybe we run into some of this late planted, late maturing crop.
He's forecasting temperatures to be normal to a little below normal, but precipitation is the bigger factor this year.
But I also think that the precipitation isn't going to be that bad. I'm projecting in some areas maybe 20% below normal precipitation, so 80% of normal.
Martin has none of these Corn Belt states receiving under 75% of its average moisture for the state for the June through September period combined.
You can raise a trendline yield crop with 75% of normal precipitation.
Indiana and Minnesota are among the driest, what he considers his troubled areas for the growing season, along with pockets of southern Indiana, southeastern Ohio, and southern Illinois.
I know it's already drying out into Missouri and Illinois, and that makes me nervous because drought likes to expand.
If I'm looking summer-wide, I'm looking at my garden spot being northwest Iowa and probably into South Dakota.
Both Martin and Hoffman agree La Nina has faded into a neutral pattern, at least for the summer.
When we look at a neutral El Nino or La Nina situation, you kind of look at other factors to steer the currents during the winter because that factor isn't going to be a big one.
But they both have different forecasts because of it. Martin has some dryness in Minnesota, Nebraska, and the central and eastern Corn Belt, with Iowa and South Dakota above normal precipitation. Hoffman is expecting a wetter eastern Corn Belt and drier western belt. Temperatures he's expecting are warmer in the western half of the country and closer to normal in the eastern belt. Despite different opinions in the Corn Belt, both think the drought in the southern plains may not disappear yet. It will take more than a couple of storms to improve.
It generally takes a couple of years, but you have to get it started with a decent rain or two. When you already have dry ground, it's very tough to evaporate any more moisture into the air, and you don't end up getting rain even when a cold front comes through. And so it's a tough situation to get out of that severe drought that they're in.
Both say they do not anticipate the lateness of spring impacting the summer that much. It just means pollination may happen close to the same time in the Corn Belt. Martin says the week-by-week forecast may be more important this year because of it. Reporting for Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon.